this is Carlos Villagran with Grand Via. Today I'm going to cover home inspection checklist by the Home Depot. You can do this by yourself. You can also contact a handyman at Grand Via, and we can walk through the home inspection with you. This is not a licensed home inspection, um, so we don't abide to the same rules. Anyways, right off the bat, What the what is recommended for you to inspect in your house is usually the grounds, the roof, the outside structure, the doors and windows, the basement, the crawl space, the attic, the electrical, and the plumbing, as well as heating and cooling, bathrooms, kitchen, interior rooms, and miscellaneous. So let's cover some of the miscellaneous stuff. For example, smoke detectors should be tested to see if they work. You should also check any handrails. Make sure that they are sufficient enough for your walking needs. So let's say there are four steps and your handrails are loose. Now that may be an issue. So you want to make sure anytime you see a handrail, by shaking it, make sure that it's nice and sturdy. For example, let's say there's another stairwell that's only two stairs uh, tall, and it's easy to kind of walk through there. So you may not need a stairwell there. But let's say you're questioning if you need a stairwell there. If you're questioning, it's better to be safe than sorry. So putting a stairwell there is important. You also, maybe something that you might not know is check to see if the garage door closes all the way. So how you do that is by, um, and just checking, making sure that the garage door closes all the way, and making sure that a sensor that it has works. And now the sensor will prevent you by being squished by the door. So you just place a broom or something there, and the sensor should sense the broom and stop pushing down the door. Um, Also, you want to check for good drainage um, everywhere, making sure there's no areas of flooding. And you can just place a ball or something circular and see where it falls into, and that could be somewhere where you might find drainage. So you might find drainage in like a drainage spot in your garage, a spot that you may not like. So let's continue with the home inspection checklist. So starting off with the roof. So you want to make sure that there's no shingles missing, and there's this thing called flashing, which sometimes may be damaged. That might be what you see that's damaged. You want to check everything you can see, for example, the gutters, and just look for anything off. And then once again, let's go back to the grounds. And like I said, you want to make sure that there's good drainage. So by inspecting the gutters, you want to make sure that the gutters, and if you can also inspect this when it's raining, that would also be a good idea to see where the water from the gutters leads to. For example, let's say the gutters go down from the house onto a spout and they touch the ground, and the ground accumulates a lot of water. You don't want to accumulate a lot of water, and there are fixes for that, like such as a French drain, which will redirect the water that accumulates where you're used to and moves it to somewhere else. So that's one thing you want to look for is drainage. Where does the water lead to? What does the water do there? Is it causing any damage? And and a handyman or a home inspector could probably fix. A handyman could fix that. The home inspector could, or figure out where it's going to. It just requires a little bit of assessment, evaluation, and problem solving. So aside from that, from drainage, you also want to make sure that there are no trees at risk of falling onto the house and damaging the structure. So you want to look for the obvious trees that are hanging over, and if they're hanging over, making sure that they're not at risk of falling over. And this is mostly a judgment call on your end. Now there may be a science to that, but it's mostly on your end, and you may want to have it any any branches that are hanging over your house to be removed. Um, and then beyond that, also what you want to check on the grounds is for any damage to the decks and any signs of termites. Look, and you just got to look around for that. All right. So moving on from there, you want to check the outside structure, and you just want to look at the foundation. Look for any cracks. Look for any, and any signs of like possible deterioration in the future by checking where the how the irrigation is. So let's say you see that that there's already some damage there, and so what you want to do is mitigate that and uh, cease more destruction from happening, which can be tackled in many ways. Let's say, for example, the irrigation leads towards your foundation, so you actually want to make it lead to somewhere else by just creating a slope. Um, and then you also want to inspect your windows. One important thing to inspecting your windows is if they're sealed correctly, making sure that there's no cracks or anything going in between. You can blow air into it and see if air goes into your house. But yeah, just look for any holes or anything. Look for any cracking, and and then also an important thing is flashing above your windows. And the flashing and what flashing does is it pretty much redirects the water from going in between the cracks between your window and your house frame, and it creates a barrier in between. That way, it rolls off the window. All right, so moving on from there. Um, so let's check the doors and windows. And one thing you may notice in your door or window is like how I said is perhaps some cracks in between where air can come in. And this is specifically a problem when it's winter and you want to keep the good warm air in and the cold. Now it's fresh, but it's still cold air out, which may increase the cost of your um, energy use. All right, so beyond caulking and checking flashing and checking landscaping and irrigation, let's then look at the basement. So at the basement, again, you want to look for any signs of moisture and all that, anything that's off or anything that's broken. Um, if your water heater is downstairs in your basement, if you have the time, then you could also drain it. So the water heater, over time, since it kind of works like a filter by gathering water from your house, uh, it usually from you, it collects whatever allergens and dust particles that are not supposed to be there for a clear, fresh environment. It usually collects all of that particulates, and so it gets stuck in there. And since it gets stuck in there, you can pretty much exude all of that by by emptying it. So if you have time, then empty out your water heater and and alleviate all those allergens from there. All right. Also, if you have any insulate like any HVAC cables or anything running through there, you also maybe want to see if they're insulated. Okay, so from there we're moving on to the attic, and once again you want to look for any damage. You want to make sure that there's no signs of anything that's about to break. Um, you want to make sure the insulation is in good condition. Uh, any electrical wires that are broken. Moving on to electrical, you want to make sure that all the cables are very secure and tight. You may not want to pull on anything, but for sure just look for anything that's broken and nearing any electrical areas. Either whether it be at your electrical box, making sure that they're all good and in working condition. So you could just do this by testing all your electrical devices. Now you could also buy this one device that connects you to your electrical outputs, and it lets you know what's going on with your electrical. So it can let you know if there's an issue or if your electrical wiring is perfect. Moving on to plumbing, once again you want to look for any damage. But a test you could also run is turning on your hot water, letting it run for a minute or two, and making sure that hot water is coming out of the hot water drain. And on the opposite end, turning on your cold water and making sure that cold water is coming out of the cold water end. Um, and again, back to plumbing, you could also check the water heater, look for any rust, and also making sure that if you have the time that you empty out the water heater, um, and also maybe check the water heater pressure. Uh, Now, I'm reading on here with the Home Depot checklist, it's saying that you want to make sure that the hot water doesn't exceed 125 degrees, uh, which would be dangerous, of course. And maybe if you get water from a well, you test the water with the test kit, making sure that there's no lead in there or any harmful, dangerous material. All right, so now we're moving to heating and cooling. So now heating and cooling, you want to make sure that there's no gas odor, and making sure that there's no leakage anywhere. But if there is, you want to make sure you contact a professional who can fix it. You want to make sure that there's no damage, no rust. Um, there aren't many things you can do immediately to fix the heating and cooling besides perhaps like where air is kind of produced um, or gathered from the house. For example, outside, if you have an outside air conditioner unit, by cleaning the air conditioner unit. And how you can do that is just by simply spraying it with water, and maybe getting a vacuum and taking out uh, all the leaves that are possibly in there. And then also on the inside of your house, if you can easily find the air intake area, which is also called the air filter system, is by just opening up the air filter system and changing the air filter. Uh, you're supposed to do this regularly, and it can improve the airflow of your house. All right, beyond that, then now we're looking at bathrooms. So let's say in your bathroom, you want to make sure, uh, that the toilet is stable, there's no rocking, there's no stains, there's sufficient caulking throughout the area, which just and caulking is just waterproofing in between spaces. So if there's a need for caulking to be done to make sure that's done, uh, I doubt entire spaces will have an entire amount of caulking missing. But if there is, you want to make sure you reapply new caulking so that there is no water damage down the road. You want to make sure everything is secure by just fiddling with everything. The tiles are secure, the plumbing is secure, the tub is secure, because you don't want to one day walk walk inside your tub and you find out that there's a couple of loose screws and then boom, you break it, or your plumbing, your toilet, you sit down and boom, it breaks. So you want to make sure you know that it's fixed from the get-go. Now, one thing you also want to look for is the GFCI receptacle. And the GFCI receptacles pretty much are the ones I think that have the test button on it. And these are very safe. All right, so beyond checking for any, and another test you can run is by running water in your tub and making sure it doesn't leak. So if you're in a new home or an old home, you may want to do that. In the tub, you may want to run some water, and if water comes out, then that means there's a leak at your tub, obviously. All right, so now back to the kitchen. Uh, so you want to make sure all appliances are working well, plumbing is good, there's no bad signs of anything. Uh, Moving on from there, uh, another thing that you may want to look for throughout the house is just looking at the squaring of your house, making sure that everything looks 90 degrees. That and if this is a new building, you want to especially make sure it's not. You are at 92, 93, 94, 95 degrees. You want to be as close as you can be to 90 degrees. So don't be afraid to, if you're with a real estate agent, to take with you a square or a level. It may be strange, but it would probably you could probably get some negotiation out of them with it by just saying, hey, like, this isn't square, this wasn't built according to plan, so lower the price a little bit, you know. So which I don't know if it's too common. I hope it's not. But yeah, you just want to check and inspect everything and making sure everything is good. Like I said, that's how you can kind of check the structure by bringing a square or a level with you. Um, so yeah, that pretty much covers almost the basics of a home inspection. There's a bunch of little things here and there that you can check, but those are some things you can cover.